Let's try something different today.
Let's play cards.
This is a standard deck of cards, as you can see. I'm going to shuffle it. And as I go through the cards, can you tell me when you want me to stop? And that would be your card. Stop. Okay. This is your card. Can you see it? Everyone? Okay. Here is your card. There is not a card. Do you think this is your card? Do you think so? Everyone's agree? Yeah. No way? Ah, okay. What was your card? Now you can tell me.
7 of hearts.
You don't need to know a magic trick to create a magical presentation. You just need to know a few tricks on how to contrast the delivery. From the book Resonate, Nancy Duarte talks about 3 ways on how to contrast the delivery, using stage, style, and interaction. Let's start with the stage.
Stage. Stage is the presentation space. Frequently, when we think about stage, we think about the front of the room only. However, there are many different areas to the room. Most of the time, we have individuals stand in the front of the room, and they're the main event. The sole focus is on them as the presenter, and they sometimes will even hide behind the podium as they give their presentation. They'll use the stage as it is, whether it's the podium or perhaps standing solely by a microphone in the center of the room. This can be appropriate in certain scenarios. It can be expected or even required. You're giving a conference presentation, they've told you to stand behind the podium, or there's a norm around formality. We encourage, though, as is recommended in Nancy Duarte's book, to mix some of these traditional elements with some unexpected tactics, such as perhaps sharing the main event, as Ricardo did when doing his magic trick, taking the spotlight perhaps away from himself over to an audience member in the meantime. Also, don't be afraid to roam. There can be some comfort in standing behind a podium, but there's also opportunities either to enter the room, as I did from another area, or roaming and engaging with other audience members, as JD and Bert do so effectively during the classroom setting. There's also opportunities to use the stage more as a setting. So that can be, rather than standing in one location, perhaps pulling up a chair to have a Q&A, using something more informally to have that kind of conversation topic. And with that, I'll pass it over to Prithvi to talk about style as a way to really engage your audience.
Thanks, Laura. I'd like to start by reading a short excerpt from my midterm. The prudent investor should strive to avoid actively managed mutual funds, as these tend to perform in line with the market over the long term, in spite of much advertising to the contrary. Because of this, net performance may be 75 basis points worse annually than could be achieved by investing instead in low-cost index funds. I hope to agree that was pretty boring. There's a couple reasons for that. One is it's about index funds, which I personally find fascinating, but judging from my midterm feedback, very few of you share that opinion. But one of the other reasons is the style that I presented that with. So I did a couple things. I tried to have a serious business tone. I think I actually had a monotone. I looked at my paper. There was a ton of jargon. It just wasn't that interesting. Now there's a time and a place for that. Sometimes your subject is so serious that you need to use a certain type of language. Sometimes you need to use jargon to build your credibility. But today we were here to argue that it makes sense to mix traditional and conversational elements. By adding humor and other things you do in everyday conversation, you'll find that your audience is much more engaged in the content that you want them to get. Now you have some examples of formal style on the left side of the slide. We do it all the time at business school. And so today, I'm going to focus on adding conversational style to your content. Nancy Duarte has a couple of tips, but it's the Friday before Thanksgiving, and so I'm going to make it even simpler. There's one thing you need to remember: dialogue, not monologue. What do I mean by that? We all enjoy talking to our friends much more than we do giving a speech in front of a large group of people. So the next time you have a speech to give, don't start by writing. Start by talking about it with one of your close friends. And afterwards, reflect on what worked and what didn't work. What points were you able to get across? What points did you wish that you had tried? After that, start writing. And I think you'll find that that approach makes you more relaxed, makes your body language more energetic, and makes your audience feel more invited. But talk is cheap, and talk about conversation is probably really cheap, so I'm going to try this. So on the left side of this slide is the paragraph that I just read, in case you wanted to relive that moment in your life. And here's a try of the conversation element. Every holiday season, Bud Light comes out with a special holiday can. Sometimes it has a Christmas tree, maybe some holly, I think there's a 49ers logo. Now imagine that that can of beer cost you $15, 5 times as much, for the same can, just with a fancier wrapping. You wouldn't buy that can of beer. Well, an actively managed mutual fund is the same thing. It's the same product with a fancier wrapping. You wouldn't overpay for your beer. Don't overpay for your investments. Hopefully that was a little bit more convincing. That's sort of the setup. So I used humor and an analogy there. We do those things all the time in conversation. We don't always remember to do them in speeches. The next time you have a big speech, have a conversation first, and you'll find that your audience is engaged enough to remember your content.
So before we move on to my section, show of hands, who thought Laura's entrance was dramatic and added impact to the presentation? That's almost everyone except the person with the camera. He was not excited about me. What about when Prithvi did his 2 different delivery styles? Would someone like to share why they thought one of them was better than the other?
Got to hear a story.
You got to hear a story. Excellent. And that's using different delivery styles, and by using all parts of the stage, you're able to bring in more impact to your presentation. I'm here to talk about one other technique that Nancy Duarte advises to increase your impact to the presentation. One of the biggest fears that a presenter has when they're coming up on stage and standing in front of you, other than forgetting lines, is losing their audience to boredom. They wander off into a daydream, for example. It's very hard to bring them back into your presentation. The key to grabbing the attention of your audience and keeping it with you is to make sure that you involve them right away. And how do you involve them? By interacting with them frequently. A traditional presentation involves minimizing disruption, resisting live feedback, and sometimes even requesting silence. We've been in many talks where the presenter starts asking for a silence. But just as Prithvi and Laura put it, there are times when this is really important, where you don't take away the experience of the audience by putting in disruptions into your presentation. But there are also many opportunities where you can enhance the experience of the audience by adding in elements of interaction. How do you do this? 3 techniques that Nancy Duarte recommends. Number 1, plan your own disruptions. You can do that by calling for a vote. You can do that by setting up icebreaker exercises in the beginning of classes or presentations. Or you can do it by I'm drawing a blank here, but you can do it by many other methods. But you also need to embrace real-time feedback into your presentation. Netto did it by going into the audience, seeking live feedback, and then bringing it into his presentation. When you saw the card that you found out on the screen up there, it feels like you're involved with the presentation a little more than if you're just seeing a talk. You also seek to encourage exchanges between audience. That's what I tried to do at the beginning. I asked you a question, and you were able to give me an answer, which I then was able to, if I agreed, build up on it, or if I disagreed, gives me a chance to refute that and cover that as well. So we're able to do this, incorporate elements of contrast using stage, style, and interaction to make your presentation more impactful.